Oh, well, last time we talked about when you talked about moving to Utah, I got really giddy. I just got giddy when Kody and I were talking about it just. The two of us, he was giddy, he was excited when we got onto the property. And I brought it up so when we met last, I felt like I was cutting you off too harshly. I was like, no, that'll never happen. We're not moving back to Utah. I was trying to be stoic is the stupid word. He's using stoic well, he was in. Music. Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Thursday, April 25th, 2024, I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. You know, I was watching a clip from Australia, the version of Sister Wives in Australia. I, until last week, had no clue that TLC did these episodes differently. Differently based on country, had no idea, and I was watching a clip about back in season 16 when Christine was wanting to move to Utah and had wanted to get the family to move to Utah and had pitched the idea, and Kody had made her told her to pitch the idea and seemed supportive of the idea that episode. And when I was watching the episode clip from the Australia YouTube, a Facebook page, my mouth was literally on the floor. There's very rarely scenes in Sister Wives where I can actually contact a family member of Christine and say this just was said. But I'm pretty confident this isn't true, and this was one of those moments where I could actually reach out to a family member and say Kody said this, and I'm confident this is false. I realized in this very moment that the move to Flagstaff literally had nothing to do with Dayton. It had nothing to do with moving for a kid. It had everything to do with isolation and preventing the wives from being able to leave him. Kody, I believe, knew in Las Vegas that he had multiple wives that were going to potentially leave him. I believe he also knew that because they owned their own homes and he had no say in those homes. He wasn't on the mortgages for Christine or for Janelle. I believe he had invested interest in getting them out of homes that they owned because he might not have wanted them to have any equity or money to leave him. I believe that he moved them to Flagstaff to further isolate them from the family and to further gaslight them into believing that they had no support systems other than him, and it was evident in this clip that the Flagstaff move was for the purpose of isolating it, was also to isolate Robin's kids, I believe, from their family in Montana, and the event that they might come to learn the truth about the coercion that was involved in the adoption and the lies that were told to them about their biological father. I think it was motivated times two. He wanted the wives unstable and unable to have access to money. He took their equity and put them into other homes that he solely owned and a property that he likely never intended to develop or build on. And then once in Flagstaff, they were so isolated from their friends and family that Kody was able to basically do whatever he wanted. He had nobody watching him because he was in a home. None of the homes were by each other, and he could come and go as he pleased. Without any complaining, he was also able to neglect relationships more easily. Without it being obvious to other people in the public. In Vegas, there was eyes on them. 28/4, 16 o'clock, meant Assad Khan, 423. Everywhere, every family member could see. When they moved to Flagstaff, family members couldn't just look out the window and see what he was doing. So I want to show you this clip because he tells Christine a flat-out lie that made my jaw drop and has not been seen in the United States. Has he listened to anything that I've said about what's happened to Isabel here in school? It's been the same. She's been bullied here too. I understand that, but she's also one of the most popular people at school. She'll disagree with you. Fine, you can talk to her. She'll disagree with you. So I'm out of the loop on something going on with my kids that they're not communicating to. Peaceful to give the kids more of parents that were there. That kind of thing is where I was setting the stage of his lie, is the beginning where Christine is attempting to share with Kody why she wants to move to Utah. And as a part of that discussion, she wants him to understand the reason why she wants to move back is because she would have community. She would be around her extended family they have friends that live in the area that's where she grew up, and so she would be able to surround her kids truly around extended family, like her mom, her daughter Aspen, and Mitch, Melty, and Tony. She would also be able to be around some of her siblings, be closer to her dad, who at the time was very sick, be closer to her mom Annie, be closer to her aunts, uncles, and members, and ex-members of the group that she came from. Even though Christine is not a current member of that church, she still had contact with her family. Very good contact. Despite what Kody will say coming up here, and despite what Kody has said repeatedly on the show, the family was never kicked out of the church. The family has never been excommunicated. The family has never been shunned by members of the group. The family has never been told that they can't come to services. In truth, they still were active, and Kody maintained relationships with active members of the group that were his friends, like his buddy Kyle Henderson. Kody is fighting for Robin's position in this, that she can't go back to Utah because her kids would not be safe from bullying in school. And here Christine says Isabel has been bullied due to, she doesn't say it, but it's because they're a public polygamous family, and people that are involved in polygamy are not viewed in the best light. And unfortunately, the kids also have the show, so the kids are being forced to be the faces of a public group that's involved in activity that's criminal because it's illegal to live this life, and these groups are almost always connected to illegal crimes around trafficking, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, fraud, tax fraud, welfare fraud, name it, and she's saying no, it doesn't matter. She's being bullied here because of it, but Robin was saying, well, my kids won't be safe in Utah because they'll be bullied because of it, when the likelihood is that they probably won't be bullied in Utah because of it. Well, they've had a major victory with the changing the law to making an infraction. That's major victory, but that fight's not over. We wouldn't have been out of woods, we still would have been shunned. Here's the thing that doesn't bother me, because I have a culture and a community there, but I think a lot of people would be bothered in our family. The family can't unite on going to Utah. What Kody is saying is a lie both ways. There's multiple ways you could take what he said, but he's telling her that just because it's decriminalized polygamy doesn't mean that they're out of the woods, that there couldn't be ramifications, i.e., it's decriminalized, meaning that it's a misdemeanor and a citation effectively for someone if they're just practicing polygamy. But if someone is caught committing other crimes, they will be charged with polygamy along with the associated crimes, and those crimes are felonies. Kody could have concern of his own involvement and whatever he's doing. That's not legal, and it's safe to say that there's more than just being a polygamist that he's practicing that's not legal. This is an anti-government organization and culture that believes they're above the law, so they don't have respect for the law. With that said, he's trite that they would either be shunned from the public, which they wouldn't be. I don't know if you know anything about Utah, but polygamists are not shunned. If they were shunned, people wouldn't work with individuals that are in construction. A lot of the construction companies in Utah, there's plenty of them that are run by polygamous cults, and a lot of these towns specifically are built around polygamist organizations, and the AO has communities where people live, not to mention the AO integrates into society. And so they hold jobs in the community, and their kids can go to public school. They would not be shunned by the public. He's likely saying that he is being shunned by people in the church. He's trying to say to her, we can't go back, because if we go back, we're still going to be shunned by the groups that we left. Because Kody's whole MO is that they have been excommunicated from the church. Kody uses the church one of two ways to fight. He's either been excommunicated and kicked out, or he uses it as, well, you can't get a release from me until we go through the church. He uses it in polar opposite ends of the spectrum, and he uses it in any way that he can to try to instill fear into her, because he knows that Christine grew up in a culture around fear, and she will fear the rules of the church even though she's not attached to the church anymore. This is before Christine comes out and says that she does not believe in polygamy. This is still while she's pretending to believe in this faith, so she's being told by her husband, "You're shunned by your whole family because you have to remember when you talk about the awe, it is Christine's family. Her grandfather started this cult. Her father is still a member of the group. She has siblings that are still active in this group. She has cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, everything. The gamut in this group still so telling. Christine that she is shunned is basically saying you can't go back to your family because your family doesn't want to see you and further drive home this point that he's talking about her family. As they're ending the conversation, he brings up her father as a way to sort of drive the dagger into her heart and as a way to sort of like manipulate her into believing that she cannot have access or a relationship with her father because they are shunned. It's really so abusive, and it's such a lie. Tell me more, Christine, about this feeling about moving to Utah. Just tell me more about like right now you couldn't even have access to your dad. I don't know, this is not a safe conversation anymore. I'm sorry, it's just not. Why not? Cause it's not cause you're not safe. See you, I'm not safe. When Kody talks about there's a bullying problem in his family, the only bully that I see when I hear something like this to a woman who has a father who's sick is Kody. Christine Brown and her fur have never been alienated from one another. Christine Brown and her father have never been estranged. Christine has never been shunned by members of this group. Christine has never been in bad standing with members of this group. In fact, it's not Christine that they have a problem with, it's Kody. A lot of the men in the group don't like Kody. Christine's father doesn't like Kody. In fact, for years when Christine would speak to her father about her problems in her marriage, it was her dad that would encourage her to leave. He was the one that said, if you're not happy, you shouldn't stay. Life is too short to stay miserable. I was absolutely stunned. I miss this. That line is in the US version right now. You can't have access to your dad. At the time, I didn't understand the dynamics with her father when this first aired. And now I do so. I contacted one of her family members and I said Kody told her that she was shunned from the group and that due to their bad standing with the group, she wouldn't even be able to see her father, wouldn't even be able to have access to her father, as though the group is controlling what her father can do and say. First of all, Rex lives in Idaho. He doesn't live on any one of the compounds in the group, even though Rex maintains membership in the group, and he's still in the group. Rex is not a leader of the group. Rex doesn't have plural wives. When Christine's mother, Annie, left him, he never remarried. He's only married the one woman to this day, and he really didn't want to take on any more women. It was just too heartbreaking for him. And there's a lot of guys in polygamy that are just absolute. There are a lot of narcissistic men that are jerks, that are cruel, and that are vindictive and evil, but a few of Rulin's sons that were on the receiving end of spiritual abuse and mental and psychological abuse and neglect at the hands of their father were not like their father. In fact, they were the opposite of their father. They were kind. They were generous. They were compassionate. They didn't treat their women terribly. Annie and Rex really just never were in love, and Annie didn't want to share her husband, and Annie wanted to leave the oppressive state of the culture. But Annie and her father, who at one point were not on good terms, can now be in the same room together. And even though Annie for the long time was like on the outs with everyone, Annie was at the wedding for Christine, and you know who was at her wedding to walk her down the aisle? Rex, who is still sick. Do you know who said to her at the wedding that she's finally found a good guy and she'll be treated well, and he's so happy? To me, I thought just moving somewhere where it's peaceful to give the kids more of for her. And you know who mocked Kody? Her dad. He was trying to pit her and her dad against each other. He was doing the one card that he knew was the most sensitive to her. Christine might not have a perfect family, but she loved her dad, and everyone that I've spoken to that knows Rex, he's not a perfect man, but he's not one of the jerks within This group, Kristen Decker, who I've spoken to a million times years ago, one of the very first things she ever told me about Christine's dad was that he absolutely adored Rex, that he wasn't a bad guy, that he wasn't one of the jerks, that he wasn't one of the narcissists, that she had so much fun. When Rex and Annie were married, they would do things as couples. Rex was always kind. Rex was always generous with his friends. He was always good to his kids. He wasn't an evil monster. He had a tender heart and a kind, loving spirit. 1551. She loved him. Kristen will tell you there's evil guys in this group, and she will tell you that Rex is not one of them, and she will also tell you that Rex never shunned Christine. Rex would never shun Christine, and Rex would never ever want anyone to interfere with his relationships with his children. Kody was not liked by Rex. Kody was not liked by a lot of the guys in the group. A lot of the guys in the group found him to be narcissistic, egotistical, a megalomaniac. A lot of the guys believed that he was only doing the show for fame, for money, and for greed. They didn't believe that he at all cared for the cause of legalizing plural marriage. They didn't believe that he had the right intentions. And if you look at what he's accomplished, he didn't have the right intentions. The people he's made it look terrible, and it isn't a good society by any means. But you have to remember that within these cultures, even though the system is toxic, not all of the people are bad. And so for Kody to use a pain point like that is evil, it's wicked, it's cruel, and the reason why she walks off and storms off of this conversation is because he took the knife to her kidney and stabbed it and went to the spot that he knew he could hurt her the most, and he's trying to make her stay in Arizona by telling her that her dad wants nothing to do with her, and that's just not true. And this is why during the same conversation